Arrays are used to store values that are all the same type, and they represent in some sense the same thing. The values are stored in what are called elements of the array. Arrays are indexed, and we use counted loops to iterate through the elements in an array in order to perform the same operation on all of the elements. Arrays can be one-dimensional, which you can visualize as either a row or a column, or they can be two-dimensional, which looks like a table that has both rows and columns. So a one-dimensional array, again, can be visualized as a row. So here's an example of a row that has 4 different numbers in it, stored in the 4 elements of the array. Or we can visualize it as a column. In this case, we have a column that has 3 elements in the array. Now, in order to refer to different parts of the array, we have to have what are called indices or subscripts for every element in the array. Now it depends on the language. Sometimes the indices start at 0. So if this is an array variable called nums and the array indices start at 0, then this is 0, 1, 2, and 3. So those are the indices or the subscripts. Or they sometimes start at 1. So here's an array variable called vals, and if the indices start at 1, then it would be elements 1, 2, and 3. So again, the indices or the subscripts are numbers that are given to each element. Sometimes they start at 0, sometimes they start at 1. It doesn't matter whether you visualize as a row or a column. And with some languages, you can actually choose what you want the indices to be. But with most, it's prescribed, and again, they either start with 0 or 1. Now, to refer to an individual array element, what you have to do is to give the array variable name and then the index in some form of brackets. So square brackets or curly brackets or parentheses, something like that is used to refer to the particular index or subscript or element number. So for example, vals square brackets 2, if that's the syntax, and if this is vals and this is the second element, then vals sub 2 would refer to this number here, the 7. So I'm going to say that out loud as vals sub 2. So the sub is short for subscript. So vals sub 2 is the second element in the array. And again, if the numbering starts at 1, then that's going to be the second element. If the numbering starts at 0, then that would actually be the third element in the array, if it starts with 0. Now, with one-dimensional arrays, we use counted loops in order to perform the same operation on every element in the array. So if n stores the number of elements in an array variable, let's say for example the array variable is called ARR1D, so it's a one-dimensional array variable. So if n is the number of elements, then what we're going to do is we're going to have a variable which we'll call the loop or the iterator variable. So either loop or iterator variable, and that is going to be, in this case, the variable I. And I is going to go through all of the values from 1 through n. So this is assuming that the array indices start at 1, so the array variable I is going to go through all of the array indices from 1 to the number of elements in the array. So if the array indices started at 0, then we would go from 0 to n minus 1 if n is the number of elements. So I is going to iterate through all of the values of the indices in the array, and what we're going to do is to repeat for each value of I the action, where the action is to do something with the array variable, whatever that is named, in this case ARR1D, sub I. So the value of the loop variable I fills in here for this value I. So the first time when I has a value 1, we're doing something with the array variable sub 1. When I has a value 2, we're doing something with the array variable sub 2. When I has a value 3, we're doing something with the array variable sub 3, and so forth. So again, we're using the loop variable I to index into the array. So I is iterating through all of the element numbers, so therefore we're accomplishing something, the same thing, for every element in the array.